weren't recorded.
I know.
They're much more freewheeling and flexible.
And,
Well, it's not like you can't be, it's just you have to,
and it's fair, they should know, the people should know what we're saying. when they're
People
people.
spoke like a real
that's the other thing about that. It's.
No,
it
no, no.
Could be partisan. Cause it is. All right, we we have people in, yes,
I'm muted.
Ron is on Zoom.
so we do have a quorum.
We do have a forum, yep.
That's outstanding. Thank you, folks.
Who
And as I
else is-
mentioned, April will not be,
Yep, April's unable to join us. She woke up not feeling well this morning. I don't know that this group, after last month's meeting, we did receive. We received an email from Ernie. He has resigned his seat from the committee.
Why? Did you piss him off?
I may have.
I don't care what it would be. What did you do to poor Ernie?
I did not do anything for Ernie.
to go.
So he didn't really give a specific
And
reason.
you didn't ask?
one of the things was, I think it was hard for him to be at these meetings because of his job, and he was never here in person.
You mean he was employed?
All right, let's get back to the agenda. The other thing that was in April's email was she's gonna forward to the committee. Apparently, there's been a conversation during the budget committee meetings and internally with them about a sustainability fund.
Woo-hoo. Sorry.
So we're making, hopefully that means progress is,
Conversation is better than no discussion at all, so.
I like that,
it's a
Deb, huh?
positive step.
it is a positive step. So we're thankful that, and I'm anxious to see where they are with that, but hey,
Does she need anything from us? I didn't read her whole email.
She doesn't know, she reached out last week to me just to get a copy of the sustainability plan. It seems like she was looking at the wrong thing, so I sent that over to her and pointed out where in
we're in
The
the
plan.
plan is,
Plan.
the approved plan. Yeah, I sent her the link to it on the town website and also a separate document, so. Is one in the. same.
great. Well, if she's talking with John, that's
That's the best we
a
can
good
hope for.
thing. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So since we have a quorum, we actually go over the minutes, talk about the minutes if needed, but would like to get them into the record, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second from Ann Hun, and any discussion? Shaking his head no, so seeing none, you want to call the roll?
I'll call roll. Yep, Rick,
Yes,
Anthony,
Here.
David,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
thank you,
We
everyone.
need some members, don't we?
Yeah, we have two openings. Yeah,
They're the two alternate openings,
they are. Yeah,
So we're permanent members.
permanent members, well, voting members.
you can never leave.
They call them voting members and alternates.
Thank
So
you.
our,
That's a good clarification.
our voting member slate is actually full.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought we had more members than this, but
Yeah, it's 5 members, 5 voting members and 2 alternates.
really.
Yeah.
Are you gonna recruit some more for us?
I mean, there is a kind of a,
Assuming you don't drive Dave away.
Yeah.
The way you did Ernie.
you gotta watch out. There is a newsletter, a committee's update newsletter going out soon, and it will advertise the openings on this committee. And if you all
If you know anybody.
know anyone, you can either have them touch base with me or with Tody. They just need to fill out an online form saying that they're interested in giving a little bit of information about themselves, and then it will go through the appointments committee and the town council, and then they will be here.
Join the
And
ranks.
they're welcome to join us. in
Yes.
advance of that.
Yeah.
These are open.
Well, these are open meetings, so anybody can come. Yeah.
Well,
They
that's
all
what we
already
got.
burned through all my friends.
You have a lot more than that. We know
Committee
that.
members, we can go out and search for people too, because that's how we got around.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you have any friends you can invite?
I only have one friend.
I think he left the committee.
Okay, well, let's not get it too far off with tangents. Anybody want to bring anything to the agenda? Jamie sent out the agenda to shape our conversations this morning. But should there be some other business you guys would like to discuss? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the old business, talk about the Sustainable Scarborough Day, and I was really glad, Deb, that you were at that meeting.
Okay,
It's great to have somebody other than me from this committee on there. Unfortunately, when I don't go to a meeting in person, I end up multitasking and things get away from me.
it is
And I
good.
should learn how not to do that.
So I'll just randomly call on you for things from now on. Make sure you're still engaged and paying attention.
I do like open meetings like this because I can focus. But you want to give an update on where we are and where we're heading?
Yeah, so just as a reminder, we have set the date for October 1st. We've started reaching out to groups to participate. So I've gotten commitments from GP Cog, who's going to coordinate an EV test drive for us. They have an EV that they loan out that they're planning to bring. They said that they would work with local dealerships to get a couple other options, and they also have an e-bike now that they will plan to bring. So we're going to set up kind of a test drive course, probably down by the middle school. We are hoping that we will be able to hold the Sustainable Scarborough Day festivities at Wentworth School. I've reached out to both the principal and the assistant principal, and it seems that the principal's out right now, so they haven't gotten back to me, but they've acknowledged that they received my email. So hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. We'll have some additional things happening at the library. That's probably where it will be like home base for the EV test drive, since they've got the EV charger right there. I've started touching base with some other groups. Eco Maine has confirmed that they'll be there, and a few others. And then the committee is also going through the list to look at who they would reach out to participate. And Allison, our communications person here in town, and I have met to start pulling together a communications and marketing plan. So we'll start getting information out to potential participants, and then working on timing to get it out to the broader public so that they can plan to attend.
Any word on a potential keynote? There were several ideas of well-known authors and.
Celebrity, Keith Carson, whatever happened with that?
I did reach out to him. I haven't heard back, so I need to.
Tell him to stop watching his weather forecast.
Maybe. I actually have a friend who is a friend of his, so I may have to lean on that to
Use your relationship.
make it happen.
Influence.
Yeah.
That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, and Deb is going to give a presentation on efficiency upgrades, home efficiency upgrades that pay for themselves. We'll also be doing presentations on pesticide-free landscaping and native plants, and of course, the Inflation Reduction Act opportunities. Efficiency Maine will likely be the group doing that. And there's a few others that we had tagged that I can't remember off the top of my head for potential workshops. So the thought is to have educational displays and vendor displays, and then also a handful of 25-minute or so workshops to provide a little bit more information to folks. So that's kind of where things stand.
That's great. Anything you need from this committee as a collective group?
No, I would say we may, as we start kind of trying to get information out, any opportunities you have to talk with friends and neighbors and let them know that it's happening and encourage them to attend. I would say that will be important. I think we're going to really start promoting it probably in August. So that'll be 2 weeks or 2 months.
We have a little budget for this, right?
We should, we will know after the budget passes. So
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
Because it'd be nice to get, those campaign signs to stick in the ground around some of the traffic areas around town and say, this sustainable day is going to happen this day.
Yeah.
That would be a nice idea.
Yes. So we'll
I've
get,
often wondered about when we have like a major event like this, working with maybe the Ethos Club and having, little post-it notes you can stick on doors. So not asking them to like interact with everybody, but just to go through the streets in their neighborhood.
Or just put something in mailbox like a flyer.
That's
That's
illegal.
illegal.
Apparently you,
Okay,
a mailbox actually belongs to the US Postal Service. It doesn't even belong to you, even though you buy it.
We buy the stick to set it on.
that's okay. Post office never puts anything in my mailbox anyway.
Right.
They're always late or they're
You'd have to
not
report
there.
them, but I bet you good money that if we went around putting things in the post office box and the mailboxes, someone would report us. I don't know.
Wow,
That or a mail, if a mail carrier sees it or.
far be it from me to break the law.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Okay. well,
Do you want to talk about the proclamation?
Yeah, so in with the agenda was the Earth Day, the draft Earth Day proclamation. I can pull it up here in just a minute. Maybe. Maybe I have to go this way. I do. Let's see if I can get this to work. And now. All right,
Is this our first Earth Day proclamation?
I believe that it is. So that's not what we want to look at, though. Ron can see what we're looking at, but no one else. can. Let me pull this over.
There it is.
This was attached to your.
Yeah.
It was a Google Doc.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, so this was included as a PDF with the agenda, and then I sent you a separate link to the Google Doc in case anyone wanted to get in there and make any edits before this morning, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to read through it. If there's any revisions, we can talk about those, otherwise
I thought
go ahead.
it covers the points. Logistically, will this be read out at the April 5th? They meet the first and third Wednesday, right?
The first
So-
and third, yep.
First one would be April 5th.
Yeah, I'm not sure when this would fit on their agenda. It would be, both of them will be before Earth Day, so.
Yeah, the other one's the 19th, which doesn't give big. And it is, Earth Month kind of,
Yeah,
so the sooner would be better.
yeah. So once we've kind of finalized this, I can forward it on to Toby and see when it can fit on the agenda. And April knows that it's coming as well, so hopefully she will help advocate to get
Do you
it.
need some sort of motion of support from this?
Yeah, I think that since this is an official request from this committee, we needed a motion to accept or a motion to approve.
Oh, there we have it. There we have it.
Nice job.
Yes,
Very
thanks
nice
for
job.
putting this together.
Is there any reason it couldn't be read at both meetings?
Probably just the fact that their agendas are really full. I mean, we can probably ask each meeting they do a town council update, and so we might be able to ask April to, as part of her update on the 19th, to just remind people.
I think I just meant revive it.
Yeah.
Can we get this into the newspaper, like after they approve it, or?
Yeah, I think so. I can work with Allison.
A little article about the proclamation being read, that Scarborough's observing this
Sure.
special day, Earth Day. Ride your bike to work, eat all local products. Compost your garbage.
And you could preview the October event
Yeah.
in that very same announcement.
Yeah, let people know
Um,
that we're planning sustainable
In
Scarborough
related
Day.
news, this is
Yeah.
happening in October.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great,
and more details to come.
yeah.
All right, so we have a motion in a second.
I think we should,
Shall we
any
vote?
further discussions? Being none, let's go through the roll call.
All right, Rick,
Yes,
Anson,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes,
Ron.
Yes.
One.
look at us,
Thank you.
we
all.
voted twice.
Got it.
making things happen. Update on spring trainings.
Sorry, just making a note for myself. Yeah, so I have reached out to both the library and Eco Maine, about coordinating trainings for this spring about EVs and the Inflation Reduction Act. Hope to get some information out about both of those things before our October 1st event. And Efficiency Maine has indicated, yes, they're happy to help us. We're just working on kind of solidifying dates right now.
You talked to Neil.
I talked to Neil and I talked to Molly about EVs. So it's looking like it'll probably be early May at this point. That's when it will fit into the schedule at the library. So I just need to circle back with all of the folks involved and find some potential dates. And then we can start advertising for that. So
Excellent.
those are coming. Fortunately, I think, we'll probably start promoting about 2 to 3 weeks out. So we've got plenty of time to kind of set on dates and start getting the word out. So we're looking at probably evening hybrid workshops. And we need to kind of figure out what we want to do for EVs if we want to have that more in person so that people can take a look at electric vehicles and kind of orient themselves with them a little bit.
Since you'd probably still do it hybrid and provide that opportunity, if it's evening, probably in advance.
Yeah,
Like the people will be there with cars for half an hour before or whatever.
yeah,
And then reference out to dealers beyond that.
yeah.
So
So
I'd still like to let people participate in the information.
yeah, the information can certainly be hybrid.
Yeah, but I do think it makes sense to have an opportunity for people to see vehicles.
Yeah.
Since they're scary.
And I think the scariest part for people is really just the fact that we live in a cold climate. And so I think that there's just still a lot of myths out there about it. But people have been driving EVs in Maine for over a decade
Well, and I
now,
was just
and-
thinking that maybe we want mine there.
Mhm.
I've usually brought it just as junked up as it is, just to show that it's my active family car.
Mhm,
And put some sort of sticker in the window that it's 115,000 miles.
mhm. You drive it in the wintertime.
I drive it all year,
What's your bill on how many oil changes you needed and all that maintenance costs
Exactly.
that you had on it?
0, 0, and 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
How old is your car now? The little Leaf?
The one I'm driving now is a 2015. I had leased a 2013 prior to that and just botched the buyout like they. Yeah, I would have kept that one. Things happened.
And when I leased an EV a couple years ago and I asked about buying out at the end of the lease, and the dealer said that's an option, but you probably aren't going to want to because the technology is changing so quickly that there will be much better options on the market when your lease is up.
Well,
So,
my position on mine is that it's a legacy car, so it's like a 80-mile range. But gosh, that's gotten me through 5 years of being a suburban
Mm,
hockey mom.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and so to use the resources, I'm really actually, this is a side comment, but I'm actually really concerned about the move towards longer and longer ranges in every available EV on the market,
Mm.
because that locks up battery materials.
You should have like some sort of like commuter car capability and then a family car kind of. where you can
Right,
take
and so
trips
for
in.
our family, we need a vehicle that can go further than this one does.
Right.
We just do, because sometimes we want to go further than this one does, not usually, but sometimes. But we don't need two of those.
Yeah.
So
That's
in any
interesting.
case, that's
Yeah.
like, I saw an article. Battery putting into, say, a modern Tesla, you could have batteries for 5 of these.
Smaller,
legacy Leafs.
smaller distance.
Or 40 electric bicycles. And those resources are limited, like we simply can't tend everyone
Right.
a battery that will go 400 miles, like.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. So anyway, I'm happy to bring mine, and again, when I bring mine, I bring it as is.
Yep.
The first time I brought it, I thought I should clean it out, and I was like, no, that's actually not the message I'm trying to portray here.
It's my car.
This is for realsies. I've got toddlers in the back seat at the time, but
Great. Yeah, so I'll let you know, when, or I'll loop you into potential dates and you
Yeah.
can weigh in on what would work
Yeah,
best.
and
for
even
you.
if I can't be there, I can just drop it off and leave the doors open and come back later.
Okay,
Put some
Great.
narrative in the windows.
great. Thank you, Deb.
My whole point here is that it's not as hard as everybody makes it out to be. No,
Change
it's
is hard though, and this is like, and
Well,
this is a huge paradigm shift too,
Mhm.
where, you're not just swinging into a gas station
Right.
and taking 3 minutes to fill up. It
Right.
takes a little bit more planning
yeah,
and you get used to it, but it does take a little bit
and
more
I had
planning
swapped
initially.
cars with my teenager over the weekend. And he chose not to open the garage door and pull it in and plug it in. And the next morning was startled when I told him that it wouldn't go as far as he thought he might want to go. Like, nope, you have to charge it.
Yeah, you have to do other things. You
Yeah.
can't just pull it in and start taking the groceries in the car in the house.
Yeah,
The whole
But-
range issue, right, I get up on my soapbox periodically. If you have a plug-in hybrid with a medium-sized battery. When I drive a longer distance in hybrid mode. I'm getting 50 to 60 miles per gallon. It's not like driving a full EV,
Mhm.
but you've got all the range and it's still better than my older straight hybrid. That only does 35, 40 miles. So it's
Yeah, there's a good, better, best kind of
right.
scenarios here,
And
and
it's
it's
based on-
whatever works in your life.
and I have run out of gas, I think 3 times in my life. And I have never been stopped with my electric car, just in terms of my own ability to manage situations. So,
Didn't Toyota bring out a car now that is like. Can be either an EV, a hybrid, and it has like a little gas motor in it as well, so that you can drive for as long as you can. Hybrid and then. So it will plug in and you can charge the battery, but if the battery goes dead, then the motor will come on and
so that's
then
any of the
it then
plug-in
kind of like
hybrids.
becomes a.
Yeah, hybrid is.
Yeah.
Is all of that.
That's any of the
all the
plug-in hybrids. What's different about the RAV4? Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
Toyota RAV4 is it has a much larger battery pack than any of the other plug-in hybrids. And so most of the plug-in hybrids have a range of about 10 or 15 miles on their battery alone. Whereas that one has the 70 or 80 that these legacy.
Yeah, which is really a nice feature, so
Yeah.
you can be EV most of the time unless you.
Right.
Go beyond that, then you're just.
Yeah.
Traditional hybrid.
It has to be just an educational process because. I get 25 on straight battery,
Mhm.
which is enough for a retired person who goes to the grocery store.
Right.
But when you want to go visit somebody, we get the first 25 miles on battery, and after that,
You're
it
hybrid.
doesn't go down to all gas, because when you're driving on gas, you're still charging.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it's really the best of both worlds.
I mean, I've owned a hybrid. I had a 2010 Ford Fusion, which was a hybrid. I loved it. But it didn't have that kind of battery range. I mean,
It didn't have the plug-in.
you could maybe run a mile
Right.
with it just battery before the motor would.
Well, it's like the Priuses. You know, they
Yeah.
were the hybrid.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
you never plugged them in, they just recharge based on the engine.
I guess one of the people's big concern also would be. The fire danger, you constantly hear these stories about you shouldn't charge it while it's in your garage and all that.
Well, but you store a vehicle that got a half a tank of gas in
Yeah.
your garage.
No.
You know, I can't understand the rationale of
No,
all of that, any
I-
of that.
I get that, but I mean, I.
It's
would
just
think
because it's different.
They said,
there's-
oh, you should never charge your car if it's in the garage, but.
Which I've done for 10
Yeah,
years.
exactly. In a place like Maine, I mean, it's like, geez.
The number of those problems have been very small and restricted.
Yeah, it's not a common theme, a common trend. It's.
But it is a
absolutely-
common misinformation.
Right.
trend.
It is,
And
and
the
you're
common
breaking
misinformation
this.
trend is also about battery replacements and that people are needing to replace the batteries like yearly and it
Mhm.
costs $15,000 or something, and it's like. I haven't replaced them yet, and because you choose your battery pack, if you've got a big battery pack, it's gonna be more expensive than if you have a small battery pack.
Well, first of all, the manufacturers guarantee, a lot of They guaranteed for what, 150,000
Yeah,
miles or
8 or 10
something?
years, or depends on the vehicle, yeah.
It's breaking myths and it's changing mindsets and it's changing behavior, and those are all very complicated.
Yes.
And so we still, after how many years have we been putting in heat pumps? They say heat pumps don't work in the cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turn off your heat pumps in when it's cold because they don't work, which is just the most you'll ever get out of any conventional combustion heating system is a natural gas, high efficient, maybe 98% efficient. So you put in 1 unit of energy, you're only getting 0.98 out. That never happens with a heat pump. It doesn't happen with an electric baseboard. You put 1 unit in, you get 1 unit out. That is 100% efficient. And heat pumps are 3-4 times that efficient. And it's a constant battling of
Yep.
priorities. Somebody making their living on servicing combustion boilers will want to say that to the homeowner, but it's not the right message. And it's something that just is slowing the marketplace.
Well, I think it's a good segue to our thing about construction materials, because I think it comes down to a question of cost. I think if you've got a traditional boiler installed in your house and now you're going to go and upgrade the heat pumps, you are laying out considerable amount of money.
And in order to get the
Which you
market
may
to
or
move
may
on
not
that,
have.
that's why states around the country have programs that will, slowly try to motivate the decision-making through financial incentives
Right.
and tax credits.
I really
That's
do
the
think
whole purpose.
I think ultimately it does come down to a question of price. For both EVs
Well-
and heat pumps and everything else.
And that's where people tend to evaluate only the upfront cost and not the operational costs. And so that's where my analysis is always.
Well, you have to think about the life of the consumer and everything else like that. I mean, if you're an older person and you're not going to be in your house for the next 15 years, you don't really think about amortizing that cost over the life.
Or sometimes 4 years, depending on the product, like.
But what they do is realize that, boilers don't last forever. And you're gonna have to replace that.
Oh, cool.
So have a plan in place
And
and early retire it a bit so that you're not in this point where my heat just went, I need a new one. What's the easiest thing? Just bring another one like it and stick it in.
And so that's when we transitioned to the pellet boiler, because heat pumps were really just coming online at the time. And we spent 6 months trying to decide, and I think we guessed wrong. But it was that piece about being ready ahead of time, because you can't just call on Tuesday and say, my
Okay, I need-
boiler failed, I need a pellet boiler. Like, that's not gonna happen. Whereas you could get an oil boiler installed on that time frame.
Likely,
Yeah, so.
because they're pilot. Just because nobody's buying them and no new construction drastically and whole home heat pumps and are really homes are not having to buy a chip or put in a chimney because they don't need to exhaust. So the upfront costs, you got to think about the whole package. Not putting in a chimney is a pretty nice expense that you don't have to have.
Clean the bloody chimney.
Yeah. So it's behavior, it's changing thoughts, it's busting myths. But that's.
Yeah.
That's
So
an
that's what
everyday
we're trying to
job. Yeah, that's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah.
So let's move. Oh, really good. What's before us is the building design standards.
And Ron has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron.
Yeah, I referenced the heat pumps. I switched over to the new CMP rate structure. And I don't know how much that's advertised and whether we want to do something about noting that with the heat pumps that you can go to a lower cost per kilowatt hour from the CMP version of things. It rebated me several $100 because they didn't get around to doing it. Or getting the
It
billing.
was a look back period.
Yeah, so anyway, just I don't remember that being something that's been advertised a lot, that for people who use more electricity because of heat pumps and stuff, that you can get a reduced rate from CMP.
Ron, I live next door to you and you haven't told me this yet.
You're not a friendly neighbor now. Hostile right now.
Have access to that information, just like email it to the group, because I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's there's basically the way it works is your standard CMP thing, you pay N number of dollars for the first some small amount of kilowatt hours, and then they charge you $3 million a kilowatt after that. If you use enough electricity per month, which since my entire house is electric, and I have a geothermal heat pump, you basically pay a little bit more upfront. It's like $35 as opposed to $15 per month for some number of kilowatt hours. And then the rate is like half or less per kilowatt from then on out. So if you use, you make money on the deal.
And so that would be applicable to electric car drivers as well, is what I'm immediately thinking. And I
Yeah,
have no
I believe
idea.
so.
Yes,
Yeah.
So it's
yes.
just about quantity of electricity.
Yeah,
used.
It's
it's-
I
amount
may not
of
qualify
quantity.
because so much of mine is on solar at this point, but somebody who hasn't taken both of those steps should
Yeah.
be looking at this. Interesting.
Yeah, I'll look up the information
I
and
just
share it with
found
the
it,
group.
yeah.
Yeah,
You did not have to put another meter on your house, isn't that correct?
they just go in and change your rate. You have to call them and say, I want to take advantage of this, and they say, okey doke. That's it.
Oh, it's a
That's the
seasonal-
hard part.
It is a seasonal heat pump rate. So you do have to affirm that you have a heat pump. It is not applicable to an electric car.
There's there's something
There-
else coming about time of use. And that's where the EVs, because of the charging done at night, when the grid can take. So
And I
they're,
looked
stay
at
tuned,
that and
yeah.
that was-
Yeah, and the people.
And I
that
believe-
Now.
The people that I talked to on the phone at CMP just said, let's look at the amount of electricity. Oh, you are using more than enough electricity to make this worth your while. That's all they cared about.
It doesn't matter whether you're using
Out
it
of
on your car or
electricity.
your heat pump.
But you have to show them that you have a heat pump.
Did you have to show them that you have a heat pump, Ron?
Negative. I didn't show them anything. I talked to them on the phone. I didn't.
And look, they can tell by the profile from the AMI data on because your meters are smart. And so they look at your profile of meter of use, combine it with weather data. You can actually see when heat pumps come on and off.
Yeah.
Because of the increase in use.
Maybe that's when I charge my car.
Well, you're still using off the grid, right? So that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Now,
So anyway,
thinking the
that,
infrastructure bill.
it's something that obviously is not well advertised, but maybe we want to, if we're focusing on heat pumps, add that to the agenda of, oh, and by the way, you can get a reduced rate.
Go out on a limb here and say, could we get a representative
Yeah.
from CMP to be at Sustainable Scarborough to talk about rate structure?
It's sketchy, like I'm not sure what they're gonna try to encourage people to
Well,
do.
our former planning director works at CMP, so.
Yeah.
That's where Jay
Jay.
Chase went, so,
Interesting.
if that's something that we want, he would probably be the person that does it.
And that would
He's
be
doing a lot of
awesome.
the
And that's why I
community.
had him in mind.
Yeah.
Because I knew he did that.
Yeah,
I think in the inflation reduction bill, there's also tax credits that allow a homeowner to take a tax credit to increase their service into their home to get it more electric ready. A lot of the homes are less than 100 amp service, and new homes being built today are 200 amp service so that they can be electric. And I think there's a tax credit involved in helping that. The thing is, we also have to remember, we have to have workforce to do all of this.
Right.
And that is a struggle.
Mm.
And thank goodness we have the community college now that are a pathway for kids coming out of high school that don't want to go to college can get tuition free and learn a trade such as being an electrician or being a heat pump installer and those kind of things to build up this capacity. Creating a demand is great and typically the market will respond, but it takes a while. And, we have to be ready for this.
New electric technology rate. So there's two different programs.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, let's do a little digging in on that. Maybe that can be a topic for discussion to see how we might be able to enjoy the benefits of having a relationship with Jay.
Yeah, what
Sure.
a wonderful person. That would be very useful for people to understand. I didn't realize that we had these kind of programs. Might be good for CMPC too, because that would engender some goodwill.
mhm.
They're trying to do that too.
Yes, they
So back to the design standards. This is
Yeah,
what it's.
Be nice to have them say something besides they're complaining about Pine Tree.
I don't think Jay would do that. Back to the design standards, the 70 some odd page document that serves as the blueprint for the appearance and the design of buildings here in Scarborough. And it's quite dated. And you can tell by some of the pictures in this, black and white pictures have been gone for years.
Well, the fact that we don't even have an original copy, it's a scanned. We don't have the original document that we can go in and,
Where this is coming from is from the comprehensive plan and the long range planning committee board is working on, the deliverables from that comp plan. And this is one of those moves that the town is trying to do is update the building design standards. And we, next month, will have somebody from Landry French here with, it's actually Kevin
Freeman.
Some of you may know him. He's been around Scarborough for a long time. He works for Landry French. And his colleagues talk about the different elements of building design and materials that are available, and more specifically, materials that are available here in Maine to use Maine products. But what do you want from us?
So I really put this on the agenda just in preparation for next month, so that you all would have an opportunity to take a look at what's in there currently and be thinking about, so just familiarizing yourself with this very old document, and thinking about where we may be able to recommend updates that would promote more sustainable practices. So I called out some of the sections within here because, as Rick said, it is like a 75-page document. I went through it so that you didn't have to. To pull out some of the pieces that were probably most applicable to this group. So I had included parking areas. Now that we have EV charging standards, we may want to think about making a recommendation to parking lot design and how they incorporate EVs there. There is one small blurb in there about energy conscious design as part of the general architectural principles. Perhaps that could be beefed up a bit more or incorporate energy efficiency into other areas. Building materials there wasn't really any talk of anything sustainability wise. And I think that that's really where we're going to focus next month when Kevin joins us to talk about innovative materials that are on the market now. Thinking about roof lines or like building orientation so that we might be able to promote more rooftop solar. And then lastly was lighting, and the lighting section is really outdated, really outdated. So, I'm sure we can come up with.
So it is in the site plan.
Yeah.
Ordinance too, it's very outdated.
Yeah, so.
How is this document being used now?
So, I mean, Rick can speak to that as a member of the planning board, but essentially, developers use this as a guide for how they design their sites, in their buildings in Scarborough. So there is,
So is this like an official document for the town of Scarborough?
it is an official document. It is not an ordinance. So, really, they're guidelines, but it's really what the planning board is looking for from developers who come in and are proposing buildings and things like that. And
It's
site
like a
layout.
developer show
Well,
up at the
that's-
planning department
Kind of.
saying, I want to build a building here in Scarborough. The planning department hands them this design standards and say, these are your guidelines.
How did we not know that this was a document that we could sneak things into?
Well, like I said, like,
Sneak is a very bad verb.
and like Rick said,
Sneak
Add-
is going back to linguistics.
Right.
Yes, okay.
Very
That
bad
we
verb.
can incorporate important comprehensive
It is-
guidelines.
it
Much
has never
better.
been on the planning department's radar to update this. And as I said, we have no actual digital document for this. It's a scanned PDF from whatever
Way
hard
back.
copy.
When was this first published, this document? When was this prepared?
I want to say it was in the 90s. And I don't know if
Okay.
there's been an update.
Those are color pictures.
Okay,
Adopted two thousand
adopted
one.
and updated in 09.
And a lot of that update in 09 had to do with residential down like by the water and things of that nature. But 2009, it's grossly out of date.
Right. And so with the passing of the comp plan, autumn coming, and kind of looking with a new eye at, the town's documents, ordinances and guidance. This is being reopened. And so it's really the long range planning committee that is taking the lead on this. So we would be making recommendations to them to incorporate into this document, and then it will move through.
So would it be fair to refer to this document as an educational vehicle?
Potentially, yeah, I think.
No,
so.
I think it's a guideline. I think it's like we have codes and then you have standards. And I think
Right.
and they call this the design standards.
But if this is a document that builders are using, it is a place to provide information that they might not be accessing through other sources.
It is, and this is more, I do want to say that this is more aesthetics. So, we can't beef it up and go above code or anything like that, but we can, I think, add in some recommendations and,
We recommend considerations.
Yeah.
That are not, we're not, yeah, ooh, I'm really having.
I mean, words like you're encouraged to do this and,
You
it
may want to consider that.
that's the kind of spirit in which this is
But
written.
this is a really great vehicle to add things that you may want to consider.
yeah,
Yes,
I
yeah,
love that.
And along those lines, I read this just yesterday and. If
Good
we
man.
were going to advocate a new version of this, I'd like to see it organized. In at least two sections concentrating on our sustainability and our building design things, and let the aesthetic things and except for EV charging, the parking lot designs and all those aesthetic things put in one section, and all the efficiency considerations in another. And if this is a PDF, it can be converted to text.
oh, yeah.
yeah, they're gonna just entirely reformat this, so that's already. This.
Yeah, I think this is where we could bring in the idea of different systems that go inside of a building, the heating and cooling systems. Making sure that the roof, the alignment of buildings encourage the roof for solar, those kind of things that.
You can drop in some passive house.
Sure,
Makes sense.
what we can't say is you have to build it to passive house standards.
Right, but it's enough for me to just say you may want to consider, like, that's such
Yeah.
a huge improvement over what we've had so far.
Is there advantage to having a hot roof versus, just having attic floor being covered with cellulose?
Yeah,
those kind of things. What about the construction of, a continuous, air barrier?
Yeah.
Being considered, now some of this is code, so, but it doesn't hurt to put what is code in here. Not to the point where you're putting metrics in, but thou shall do this kind of thing, because code says you have to do it.
Yeah, and I think we just want to be mindful that if we are referencing code, we want to make it general enough so that when the code
Code
changes,
changes,
we don't have to
right,
go
you,
back.
you refer to, a particular part of the code.
Excellent.
Yeah, Eric's changes is a
So-
big thing.
So our task is to review these sections.
Yeah, take a look
And-
and think about ways that what additions you would want to see in there
Excellent, thank you.
to make it, to increase kind of the thought of sustainability in developers' minds. And like I said, I didn't expect us to necessarily have any outcomes from this discussion today. It's really to get people thinking about our meeting next month when Kevin is going to.
I think that'll be an
Join.
interesting conversation we have with Kevin and his colleagues.
Yeah, and I have extended the invitation to both the Conservation Commission and the Long Range Planning Committee if they want to attend for that portion so that they are learning more, just as we are, about building materials. And I believe Autumn has included the notice to the Long Range Planning Committee. I gave her the information. So like I said, they are the group that's kind of tasked with coming up with the updates to this, and they'll be kind of reviewing, kind of giving Autumn their thoughts and guidance, and then reviewing what is the revised plan.
And I think this is a great document to work on first, and then you take what you get out of this document and you start looking at your site plan review or ordinances.
Yeah.
And see where you can start doing some tweaking with the
Oh,
ordinances.
this looks like such a path. Hooray.
Yeah, and so just to give you an idea too, so the Conservation Commission is working through this because or working through the landscaping section, because the plant list that is in this and in our site plan review
old.
ordinance is very old, includes invasive species. So that is being totally, revised and really putting an emphasis on native plants.
And maybe even make a list of invasive species.
Oh, we have that list.
I know,
It's
but-
on the state
Right,
website.
but making sure that that's referenced as well.
Yeah, well, and really, we're saying these are the plants that you can use, and we're not even talking about the plants that you can't use. So if it's not on this list, you cannot be planting.
Don't put it on your print, because
Right.
you'll be told to take it off.
Right.
Okay, great. I'm glad we're looking at them.
And so, and then the commission's plan beyond that is to do kind of a Scarborough planting guide for residents as well. That's really focused on native plants and
Oh, I'm
stuff
so
like that.
happy.
So
Yay.
work in progress. So do we want to walk through any of these sections and kind of
Let's-
and review them
Let's
here?
read them first.
Okay,
All right, that's fair.
Because I think we get stuck in one of them without understanding what's in the others.
Okay.
I'd prefer to read them
Yep.
first before we go further,
yep, that's fine.
but I really appreciate that we're moving this direction.
It's hard to work on this document because unless you have the right Adobe, you can't put notes
Make
on it or
notes.
things like that. So you'll have to take notes and highlights and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or if anyone wants a printed copy, I can print one for you if you want to.
Or I may print out just these few pages.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
sections you want us to look at, we can print those out.
Sure.
Ourselves.
Yep.
Who are the leading architects in Scarborough?
There's lots of them. The one closest to here, I think, is Gowan Turgeon.
Mhm.
They're the closest, but there's lots, and then there's these firms like Derigo, who's down off the by Lowe's down that road. They're a design build kind of firm too, so you get these folks that do it on the spot.
You would think a document like this would be top of mind for those people.
Oh, well, developers have to do it according to these.
Well, and if they don't, the
Design
planning
standards.
board says this doesn't meet our design standards, and then they have to go back
Yeah.
and revise, because I know like the housing, was it the Avesta?
Avesta housing.
That was going, in conjunction with the old fire station, their design came through and it didn't align with. the town's design standards.
Right, so they had to do some tweaking on their design plans, you know, there's requirements for windows and what they even look like.
Yeah,
And
but you know, the architects, they come up with the drawings and the plans and everything else. You would think that this should be top of mind for them. This is first stop for them.
Yeah, I think part of it is kind of cookie cutter, you know, especially with national buildings and stuff, they have
So
their
you just
own,
pull it off the shelf and say, okay,
yeah.
you get a big box store that comes into Scarborough, they have their design standards. Now they have to fit it into the local jurisdiction. Take for an example, the McDonald's up in Freeport. It looks like a home because their downtown area is filled with homes. So their design standard said, thou shalt look like this. And so they had to create a McDonald's that looks like it's in a house.
Mhm.
The same thing, you know, there's fake windows on Walgreens. Because the design standard said that it shall look like this and have what looks like fenestrations that cover, you know, window side or street side and that kind of stuff. So, you know, where you position the parking lot, that's part of the design standards.
Yeah, and you can definitely tell the buildings that were built prior to the
Right.
design standards, because they.
Even our own McDonald's has
Fake windows.
more modern design standards than back in the 50s when McDonald's had the big arch and a drive-through and, you know, the Big Mac was 50 cents.
or less.
Can I throw one more thing onto our future list? I'd like us to be thinking about what steps the committee might take to encourage community solar farm development on some of these properties that we've identified that we own.
Yeah, that's on my list as well.
Because I mean, my dream plan would be something that was opened first to residents so that we could have a real reason to do an advertising push to
Mhm.
residents around that.
Yeah, and
And it's hard to get them even built right now because
yeah, there's a
There's a
huge
backlog.
backlog. Yeah, and I will say Piper Shores has approached us, because they're interested in, some sort of community solar because they're not able to develop it at their facility based on their, the contract zone that's in place for when their site was developed. So they've asked, a couple of times if there's any opportunity to develop any municipal land. The town has a really kind of prime location to put
little
in
dump,
on Pleasant, off of Pleasant Hill Road.
yeah.
Would be a perfect location for a
Okay.
solar.
Just put it in like the ongoing back burner, so we
Mhm.
have it on the list and
Yeah.
can get back to that.
Yeah, and I think with electricity rates the way that they are, there would be more, I think might be more interest on the town of decision, the part of decision makers in town to seriously look
And
at
to do
that as
something
an
that
option.
municipal buildings could access
Yeah.
in a way that we haven't.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Right. So that's that. We can move on to updates if we're ready. So I don't have much for town council. I will share that the Conservation Commission has a workshop with town council scheduled for April 19th. Looking at the value of and the importance of conserved land in Scarborough and encouraging more officially conserved land in Scarborough. So they are, the council has adopted kind of as part of their 2023 goals, the 30 by 30. So conserving 30% of the town's land by 2030.
Where are we at currently?
So I'm working on crunching those numbers.
Okay.
I think we're probably about halfway there, between 15 and 17% based on kind of what I've been looking at.
And
so
does that
far.
include the marsh?
So that does include the marsh. And so there have been a lot of discussion about that. And so ultimately, the commission was really pushing for removing the marsh from that tally. And so my question was, if you remove the marsh from that tally, are we also removing the marsh from the amount of land that
Land.
Scarborough has?
And of
And
course, they were saying no.
No, they said yes. So if we remove the marsh, we don't even include it as part of the town's land calculation. And I said, well, then our percentage is not going to change. Because if we remove it from what is conserved and also remove it from,
Yeah,
Well,
it's a wash.
Fraction of it is conserved as opposed to other land is conserved.
right, but all of it is conserved because all of it is owned by inland fisheries and wildlife.
Right,
And so
so
that's
that
why,
would drop our,
well, it's not gonna change the percentage if we remove, the 3,000 acres of marsh out of the 3,000.
it will change it, it will drop the conserved percentage significantly.
Not if that amount of land is also removed from the town's entire
Right, but a
area.
section that is conserved at 100% as a portion of a section that is conserved at a different percentage, it will drop the percentage of the remaining section.
So-
Automatically, that's what will happen.
We just don't have a good way of teasing that out. So basically, we're saying it's a net zero if we remove
Yeah,
it
to
from
look at
one-
it as a wash.
Right,
I kind of like the idea of keeping it in because you put acreage on the sides, it starts to say, wow, Scarborough's done a pretty good job in conserving.
On
well,
the flip
Land.
side, it may
it
let
overinflates,
us feel like we've just.
Yeah, it overinflates because we had no control over that.
right?
So were we really that good doobies?
But either way, it's good that part of that area isn't going to be developed, isn't going to be impacted, is no longer going to be channelized and drained for
And
agricultural.
it's a benefit to
purposes.
Scarborough.
Right. So, I definitely see both sides of it, just in terms of this exercise. There's gonna be a margin of error any way we go, so. It's looking like we need to conserve another 15% of town, which is going to be probably another 5,000 to 7,000 acres by 2030.
Do you have just a rough estimate in your head of what fraction of the town the marshland is?
I think it is about a 10th.
Thanks.
Would the commission be open to, if there was a solar, utility grade solar farm on land, would that be considered conserved land?
I don't think so,
Why?
because it's, I guess it would depend on how that land was modified in order to install that solar array. So if we're talking about cutting down trees and stuff like that, no. If it is,
Well, no, because theoretically, the saved, generation has its benefits, even though you cut down a tree.
but they're talking about the importance of intact habitat. And so if we're, like I said, if we're talking about forested land, we're fragmenting that habitat. And so that wouldn't be considered. If it's,
Yeah, I hear that.
Well, I think it is an issue for the Conservation Commission to address, and we may want to weigh in on that.
What is their mechanism?
Because there's societal benefits to that.
Right, but okay, I think it's a bigger question.
there's a huge philosophical discussion around all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's really kind of,
How do they plan to get the extra 5,000 to 7,000 acres under conservation
that,
between now and 2030?
so, part of what they're asking for is, through this budget cycle is an open space plan that will help kind of see where we're at and also put together a roadmap for how we get to where they want to be.
And so there's a real question to be asked too about what does conservation mean? I mean, one of the issues that I've really struggled with the land trust is whether conservation means put a ring around it and not do things, or whether that means active engagement to encourage the sorts of environments that you want.
Yeah,
And so that's a huge distinction in terms of thinking about what uses are permitted, whether recreational uses are permitted, whether sustainability initiatives are permitted.
well, and I think that that's a really good point, because if you look at like Broad Turn Farm, that farm is conserved. We're counting it as part of our conserved land, but it's not like it's entirely in its natural state. It is a working
No, you're
farm.
right, exactly.
Right.
So,
And
which
what-
is,
That has societal
That gets
benefits.
back to a different question about what is its natural state, and I would recommend everyone read Michael Pollan. What's the name of the book? Should fall out of my head.
there are so many.
Right, but this is the book about what does natural mean, and what does it mean to be involved, and what does it mean to manage, and what does it mean to conserve?
Mhm.
That's focused on a forested property in Connecticut. Sorry, I'm gonna find it.
Well, it sounds to me like a little bit of a competitive exercise, doesn't it? Because you're in direct competition with people who want to do something else with the land.
Well, and this is just that, if it's privately held, it is that landowner's decision for what they want to do. Do they want to make sure that it stays, you know, in its natural state, undeveloped? Do they want to subdivide it and sell to developers? No one is going to tell people what they can and cannot do on their land, but these are just kind of goals that are being outlined.
The name of the book is Second Nature, and it was transformational in my thinking about what conservation, preservation, habitat, structure really mean.
Yeah.
In the context of
What,
land. Second nature,
I mean, the definition of conservation is the wise use of a resource. And
Right.
preservation
Yep.
is, you know, keeping it in its,
huh?
say that again.
Second nature.
You know, it's gonna boil down to money,
of course it is.
Exploration of a.
because you're in competition with
forest that-
all of the alternative
And
uses.
they decided.
Unless, of course, you get a very altruistic person who's
And
willing
what
to
was that land? prior
deed the
to,
land to the
Right.
town.
Europeans in the, on the property.
I think
What was the
there's
land?
certainly people like that out
Indigenous
there.
management. What does
And I think
management
part of it is at
mean?
least
This idea.
raising the profile of conservation and getting people
So that was really.
Don't
understand that there is
Read that.
another option between it besides just,
So
you
it
know,
really
selling
framed
to
it
developers.
different.
Speaking of Jay Chase, way
Yeah,
back
okay.
when, and the
Thanks for that.
Conservation
Yeah.
Commission, I raised this issue,
sure
and
that's the
I
right
said,
one.
wouldn't it be nice if
There's also
you could come up with
I'm
an
just looking
inventory
at
of lots in town that were
the actual.
in excess of a certain size, maybe 25 acres
Yeah.
or something like that, the people would want to maybe donate it or deed it or something else to the town. You know, I don't know, maybe in return for no property taxes during their life, and then after that, it goes to the town. You know, because the people don't want to see their woods chopped up for some housing development.
yeah, so, and there is, the town does have a program, the transfer of development rights, where basically they sell off the development rights for their intact property, and then developers can basically purchase those and apply them in designated growth areas in town, but that is also in conflict with our growth management ordinance. So it's a web that needs to be kind of worked through to understand.
But I like that idea of incentives. I don't know that we have anything like that in place.
Because there are altruistic people out there. They said this was my dad's farm or our property. It's been I don't want to see it chopped up, and I'd like to see it preserved in perpetuity.
And the Pleasant Hill Preserve is a perfect example of that kind of situation. That the owner was in conversations with the land trust about how best to manage that transfer when he passed away, and his children who inherited the property. Were thinking in a very different way.
Yes, it was a monetary.
It was pretty dramatic.
Yeah,
And
and
so
it
for him to have
happens
had-
all the time.
Had a way and an incentive. To make that decision be much earlier. That's.
I think during the life of the grantor is when these decisions have to be made, not a deathbed. I don't want the thing chopped up, or even after they pass.
Mhm.
So, and I know that the land trust has kind of their, an internal list of properties that they are interested in acquiring should they become available, and have done some outreach to landowners about that. And since many of the large parcels in Scarborough, there aren't many large parcels in Scarborough remaining, so now they're looking at quality versus quantity and what is contiguous to their existing conserved land, so that they are kind of looking at more of a landscape scale as opposed to like a scatter
It's
plot.
scattering. It's like sprawl. You know, you don't want that. So you
Yeah,
don't
but
want sprawl with your conserved land either.
Yeah, yes. Well,
Yes, and-
that's philosophic. I mean,
Yeah.
you are lowering the density, and that's nice.
Yeah.
If you drive down Route 1 and you don't see something every 20 feet, that's a
And
plus.
we had that conversation about equitable access. And that if what we're conserving is only contiguous to the existing conserved properties, then people who are living in areas that are not near those properties aren't gonna have the same level.
Yeah, and I don't believe that that is their only criteria, but that is one of the things that they're looking at currently.
We totally got off our own business, didn't we?
That's all
Sorry.
right.
Sorry, giving me a chance to multitask.
So, yeah, so that workshop will be happening on, like I said, April 19th.
But I personally, I believe there has to be incentives for people to want to do this. At least, you know,
Can you put that on your list for conservation?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, you know, what makes, you know, how.
If it's raw land, maybe a lower tax rate if it's gonna be transferred over at a certain time.
Well, there already are tax incentives for, like conservation easements and things like that. It does lessen their tax burden if.
That's true, that's true.
Yay.
Rick, do you have a planning board update?
Yeah, a lot of things happening now as of course the weather gets nice and the construction season is beginning. You'll probably notice Avesta has started the 55 and older housing unit by the old fire station. You'll notice that it is got green board on it, so eventually it'll all be taped. That's part of that continuous air barrier. So Avesta Housing is and is utilizing Main State Housing funds financing. There's certain requirements that building has to meet, and it will be a good building. It will be an electric building. It will be well envelope will be very well done. So there's a lot of good things, and you can just watch that happen now because it's more in a visible spot. Another thing that came to the planning board very recently is they call it the 3I home. It's for mobility challenged individuals. It's designed to accommodate those folks that have mobility issues, yet live in an independent sort of lifestyle. It's slated to be built, or it's being considered in the Downs as part of what is slowly migrating into the Downs downtown. We saw for the first time the first crack at subdividing the entire downtown district. So they came in with a plan to bring in the Scarborough Downs Road through and now entering into the downtown district with 5 lots. And those lots have not all been decided what's going to go on there. One of those lots will be this home that is, they've already demonstrated to me, they're going electric. They have PV put on the ceiling or on the roof. They certainly know the EV ordinance is part of it. So I look forward to this. There's some concerns, but that's why they come through planning board and we work through it. But parking is an issue because parking is going to be a premium down there if we don't do this right. At present, there isn't the thought of putting a parking garage down, but where they're positioning parking, it could be something that's done as it's starting to be built out. So that option is always there. It's funny, I was listening to the developers, they actually were considering how to maybe build this so that parking could go underneath the building. So there's another way in which things can happen on that line, but the Downs is starting to move forward with this downtown district with a real focus on mixed-use buildings. So there will be components of residential as well as commercial in these. So that's a good thing. IDEX is continuing with their build out there in the innovation district at the Downs. They asked for a slight modification, but insignificant. I just got the agenda for next month and it's packed. I don't know how in the world we're going to get through it in 4 hours. But sometimes our meetings are 4 hours long. We go at 6:30 and sometimes we don't get out of there until 10:30.
Has the hotel come through yet?
The hotel on, yes, by the Lowe's, Yes, that came through twice now. One as a, no, this one. There's two. There's one across from Lowe's that came in with a sketch plan. They have to do a little bit more work on that, but generally they're getting there. It's still, they can get an approval from the planning board and it never goes.
Right.
It's a step. And then another one is considered by the Sebago. The plus thereby across from. What is it?
Christmas tree.
Christmas tree shop, yep. In that area is another hotel. And they've asked they gave us a sketch plan because we wanted a sketch of what this conceptually would look like. Because they want to do a stockpile, they have to preload. And they want to bring in that stuff, so, that's a visible impact on the surrounding area, so. We wanted to make sure there was a viable project there, if we're gonna allow them to preload, that could take, a year. Most of you probably know that land that's right by the turnpike entrance there on Haggis. That's been bare and loaded for a long, long time.
Mhm.
That's part of why we wanted a sketch plan to make sure there was something viable there. So that it just didn't sit there, and start collecting.
The first one you mentioned is the one it fell under the EV ordinance.
Yes, yep, they both are,
They both are.
yep,
Yeah, and
yep.
so their parking lot will have to be 100% EV capable, so they have to have conduit going to, or conduit with capabilities for future EV installation at all of their parking spots.
It's really, I really applaud this committee for getting this EV ordinance. It's like cutting edge for the rest of it. And now the legislature is actually looking at in a statewide ordinance, if you will. I guess they call them laws. Statute. So look forward to that. That's a discussion that's ongoing right now with the current legislation.
I mean,
How
just
did
good
the
business.
lighting discussion at Costco turn out?
Well, that's been a while ago.
Yeah,
My hope is that they've worked with staff, and I'm sure they have to. My impression is, according to that guy that feels like he can tell us what he's gonna do. Said that they're not gonna lower it down to anything less than 3 kilowatts. Which is not in accordance with our current ordinance. It does not follow standard practice by IES. However, they're working with staff and it got approved. But my fear is that it's going to, and this is their purpose, it's not for safety, it's to light up that area, it's to give
Look like a
Costco,
stadium.
like, oh, wow, that's a cool place, I gotta go
A
get a
beacon.
membership, a beacon. And that would really just irritate me, and I still kick myself for saying out loud that, well, this isn't a deal killer. I should have voted against it. I could have been I probably would have been the only dissent, so it still would have moved forward. But personally, I feel like I let myself down on that one.
but I'm clearly behind the curve on this, but there were discussions about the height and
The height of the poles, they got a waiver to have them higher than what the ordinance allows. And then the power of the light, but they're in our ordinance, it says they have to be dimmable. So, there may be something down the road that we can say, listen, this is just not, you're not being a friendly neighbor here. You gotta turn these things down. And I hope that.
and there's also the downward.
Yeah, the downlight, yeah, no uplight, but they are using IDA fixtures. I did see that, and it was 3000 K, so it is dark sky fixtures.
It's gonna ask if they're painting their parking lot white, so it would just reflect right back up.
I don't know, but 694 parking spots, and we've got 4 of them with EV chargers on it.
It's a good start, thank you.
Yeah, well, that's before the ordinance.
Yeah.
Now they would have had a whole different story.
Right, but.
Right next to the turnpike too, and just an irresponsible, it shows you what. These large big box stores come in and they think they can throw their weight around in a little municipality. And
And guess what?
they're not wrong, they got.
And guess what? They're right.
They got what they wanted. right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I personally feel that.
Well, we're moving as quickly as we can.
I learned to get a little bit more of a backbone on the planning board now, because I don't mind being a defense if I feel like it's not meeting the ordinances, and that's the only thing I can do.
Mhm.
And I had a case there, it did not meet the ordinance, they got a waiver. So,
Yeah, that's painful. I'm sorry. Thanks for trying.
well, I
Carry
didn't
on.
try hard enough. But anyway, but just be aware that, and the conversation is all now with the growth management ordinance, there's, I don't know if anybody went to the workshop. It was well done by Nick McGee and, John Anderson. Thank you. They got the input. Remember, Autumn came here and we answered questions with Jamie and Autumn. They took all of the committee's recommendations and they presented what I thought was a pretty well done summation of all of what we collectively provided and, trying to make the right decisions for the town, which is a tough job. And they don't want to hold another body, other town councilors that come on after them. They don't want to handcuff them either. So it's a tough role,
But we do want to. Oh,
but
sorry.
we do want management.
Right,
And so how do you not handcuff somebody if you
right. Management
want
requires
it to
that sort
keep
of,
going?
that sort of long-term commitment.
Yeah.
I don't actually intend to handcuff it.
So that's really the update from planning. Just, it's gonna be busy now for the next few months,
Mhm.
which is. And we all want the Downs to succeed. It's good tax revenue down the road. I mean, this will benefit the town. But then there's a faction that say, I still hear, darn, I wish that was turned into a casino. Cause that was a use years and years
20
ago.
years ago, yeah,
But there's still a faction that,
Wasn't 20 years ago,
no, maybe 15, it was a while ago.
so
maybe 09, 10.
I still feel like Scarborough's the place to live in Maine.
You and a lot of other people.
Yeah.
I hope so.
The difficulty in reining in growth and development.
Yeah.
The one thing that's, I got in the back of my mind is we try to conserve land and we're given so many options and growth is a natural thing. People are moving to Maine. Does this mean that we have height restrictions now on buildings? But in time, those height restrictions could change
And will change.
and will change.
Will.
And, we have to look at that too. Will we ever be a downtown Manhattan? I hardly doubt it. But you might start seeing taller buildings down the road, maybe not in our life when we can still see. But that's a consideration as we shrink the available land for developers to make a living, which they need to make a living. You may see growth moving upward.
And those are equity as well.
Yeah.
And so what housing is available for people within the confines of the community? And what does that mean for services available in the community?
Mhm.
So I think those are really important considerations. And there's a lot of evidence that these restrictions on what can be built play out in really discriminatory.
It does.
Rick, you're a native Mainer?
No, I was born in Louisiana and lived in Okinawa and probably,
No, I didn't, yeah,
I've lived here since 1974. A long,
Which does not count.
which doesn't, I'm a transplant.
no,
And my wife, who I'm very proud of, is born and raised off of Pleasant Hill.
my point is, neither am I. I mean, I've lived lots of other places too. And I think what concerns me about development in Scarborough is that there's a continuous creep. It's, it's the frog in hot water. And, we've seen like in central New Jersey with all of development on Route 1 and in Delaware and California, that people after a while, you develop to the point where people start to lose their quality of life.
Hmm.
You know?
Or their quality of life changes and what.
No,
now-
Because you get issues of crowding, issues of traffic. Pollution, open space disappears.
But where does adaptability come in? And people tend to then adapt to a different,
Well, you know how people adapt, often they will move.
that's a
They will
way to
move.
adopt, adapt.
They will move, and that's what you're starting to see here, because people move here and they go, oh, it's so much less crowded. It's more open, the people's a little bit slower pace.
And you need to freeze it
Yeah.
exactly where it is now, because I like this.
Yeah, there are elements.
Well,
of-
yeah, and
There are elements of. You know. Where, how do you want to live? And how does that redound to your. Just enjoyment of being alive a little bit. I think that's what concerns me is that when you, because my experience with developers is developers will continue to develop until there's no more land. Or they go broke. There doesn't seem to be an on-off switch at all. And there will always be some more land because they'll figure out a way of doing it.
yeah,
I lived in California for many years. We saw what happened places. Where you say, well, they can't develop anymore. Well, they can, because what happens is they come in, they offer somebody a bucket of money. They tear the person's house down, and then they build a lot line to lot line new house. So. I'm just wondering sometimes whether the conversation in Scarborough, how well it's informed.
well, one of the things that I personally have seen the difference over time is the committees in Scarborough working hand in hand with staff. Because you get people from all perspectives in committees, and this helps inform staff. And working together, so I think the desire of the town council and the staff. Placing a little bit more credence into what committees are working on and the output of committees help inform their decisions. And I think that's a positive move that 10 years ago didn't happen. Anything else we got on our agenda?
No, I think we covered Conservation Commission, so that's that.
That is a wrap,
We shall
folks.
see one another.
And we're 9:25. We have Kevin and his colleague coming next month. So our meeting is April
26.
26th. Good. I'm back. Great.
Great.
Anybody have anything else? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. We have it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you, Ron.
See you, Ron.
Yep.
Ah.